This video is going to be very hard to monetize. It happened to me before. I'll tell you about it at the end. But first, we'll look when and why US and international agencies essentially had to hack computers in the name of national security. What were those events? How did they happen? And how they were authorized? Because there was one case where the White House had to step in. Believe me, the story is great and you don't need to be a network expert to understand it. Let's get started. Hafnium 2021. This was a coordinated global cyber espionage attack. It wasn't an isolated virus, but rather a series of actions that by combining exploits, malware, and hacking end up compromising an estimated 400,000 servers, mostly in the United States. Because of the scope and severity of the attack, the White House formed a unit called Unified Coordination Group, which through the Department of Justice obtained approval for the FBI and CISA to start operations and dismantle the attack. The scale was so large that NATO and the European Union also collaborated. This operation was on another level. Remember, 400,000 servers. In some cases, the FBI visited affected companies and even individuals whose computers were infected. Of course, those were specific targeted cases. Imagine, they knock on your door and say, "We're from the FBI. We need to talk to you. How can I help, officers?" "Sir, we need to update your antivirus." In reality, these hackers were targeting Microsoft Exchange server. But how did they infect so many computers? The criminals mainly exploited zero-day vulnerabilities, which are software flaws attackers already know how to exploit, but the software maker hasn't fixed or is unaware of. How it was detected? Two cybersecurity companies found it. First, DevCore discovered the vulnerability, the bug in the software. PlugX described how the attack operated and detected that servers were already compromised. Why the FBI intervened? Because despite Microsoft warnings and security patches, organizations kept getting infected. Some didn't apply the patches. Others had already been rehacked right before applying them. Microsoft, leaving them vulnerable again. We're talking about nearly 30,000 institutions and 250,000 servers just inside the US. Why is this case important? Because although most of the fix was done via remote forced patches, in other specific cases, the FBI had to enter private property with a court order, of course, which represented an unprecedented action justified by national security. Why did the White House get involved? Since the attack was targeted and well organized, a coalition with European governments and allied countries was sought to alert them about the rise of global cyber attack groups. They also pressured China to do more to go after groups operating from its territory. The criminals who carry out the attacks are believed to be linked to factions aligned with China. This attack has been labeled as APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, meaning it wasn't just a single incident, but a series of coordinated attacks. So Hafnium isn't the hacker's name nor the malware name, but the actor or campaign. Microsoft naming Hafnium because at that time it was common to name APTs after chemical elements. So on July 2021, it could have happened that if your PC was infected, authorities apply a patch to it. Now, if you were one of those people they visited in person, please tell us about it in the comments. The US was the most affected country and Germany was the second, but to a much lesser extent. For the rest of the world, remediation steps were published. PlugX Malware 2024. This piece of software is officially a RAT, Remote Access Trojan, that lets attacker take control of a computer, from viewing the user's screens to capturing keystrokes to steal password, obviously. This malware aimed primarily at government agencies, defense contractors, tech companies, and political activist organizations. That's why it's been linked to a foreign government or dissident groups. For example, one attack targeted European agencies helping Ukrainian refugees. Also, stolen information from diplomatic entities in Europe was to know what their foreign policy toward the war in Ukraine would be. For that reason, suspicion fell on Putinsky. Another theory is linked to groups aligned with China, but well, the words China and Microsoft will come up a lot in this video. How did the attack work? It is spread mainly through targeted attacks, names and details tailored to the victim, posing as real services like an internet provider or gym membership. This is called spear phishing. Then, by exploiting vulnerabilities in Adobe PDF file, Microsoft Office, emails, and even Windows shortcuts, they infected the victim's computer. How was it detected? Trend Micro was the first to detect it. Later, the cybersecurity firm Sequoia.io described how the malware worked and performed reverse engineering. How was it removed worldwide? Get ready, this one was a thriller. Sequoia discovered how to remove the malware, but doing so required using the infected computers themselves. And international laws prohibit a private company from accessing others' computers because that would be illegal. So Sequoia reported it to French authorities. C3N, France's cybercrime unit, got involved. The investigation was high priority because there was fear that the 2024 Olympic Games in France could be sabotaged. Through Europol, cooperation was coordinated worldwide, including with the FBI. And how they did neutralize it? They did something epic. They used the cybercriminals on servers and networks. Authorities infiltrated those infrastructures and caused the Trojan to execute a command on all already infected machines. What command? A self-destruct command. They literally made the Trojan remove itself from all infected devices. The operation was called Désinfection Souveraine. So yes, again, authorities enter your PC and you might not have noticed. In the US, it was common to be notified through your internet provider that your machine has been infected and that you need to install antivirus software. Officially, there were 4,250 APCs in the US and an estimated 2.5 million worldwide. It was an extensive process that concluded in January 2025. QakBot 2023. This malware targeted financial infrastructure. It aimed to steal credentials, cookies, and keystrokes to obtain banking passwords. What made this attack different is that it operated as a service rented out to other cybercriminal organizations. It was like a Netflix subscription. If you didn't pay, you lost access to the hacking tool. It's estimated they made up to $58 million from these subscriptions. Shark mentality. How did the attack spread? Unlike the others, this was not targeted, but a mass campaign of spam, social engineering, malicious links, and Microsoft Office files. What was special about this malware? It detected when it was being analyzed and it wouldn't run in those environments. Matthew Brennan, a researcher at Huntress, discovered how it worked and tricked the malware into thinking it was always being analyzed, so it would never execute. That's called sandboxing for the smart commenters. And who was blamed this time? The code contained traces of Russian text. They then looked at operating hours and matched them to Russian working hours. The investigation pointed to Rostam Rafilevich, a Russian citizen. Authorities managed to seize $24 million in cryptocurrency from him. He still lives in Russia and continues in cybercrime. And Russia has no extradition agreement. Why did the FBI intervene? Because by offering the malware as a subscription service, it allowed virtually any noob cybercriminal to join and make money fast, creating two problems. An increase in the number of people wanting to engage in cybercrime, copycats who only rented the tool, an exponential rise in attacks on the financial system, which could cause a global economic problem. It was so widespread that 11% of corporate computers worldwide were infected. The US Department of Justice authorized the FBI to start Operation Duck Hunt, which also worked with Netherlands government, Europol, and Eurojust. Companies like Zscaler, Shadow Server, and Microsoft Digital Crimes were involved. Microsoft Digital? Yes, it exists. They took down 52 servers in the United States and 700,000 elsewhere. That sounds small, but remember, these were financial institutions, not computers with Minecraft. How did they disable them all? The FBI took control of several networks and redirected the malware's traffic to networks they control. Once their infected machines were instructed to download and execute a file. But this time the file wasn't malicious, it was the malware's uninstaller. Why it was called Operation Duck Hunt? Because the Trojan is called QakBot, pronounced like quack, the sound a dog makes. Also, since the operation was to dismantle the threat or hunt the criminals, they made a nod to Nintendo's Duck Hunt game. So you can see the FBI can be nerdy and have sense of humor. So those were the cases where the FBI probably got into your PC and you didn't notice. I want you to know I didn't intend to make a full cybersecurity treatise in this video. Relax, you know-it-alls. There are 2 or 3 more cases, and if you really like this video, I could make a part 2. A like helps too. Although let's hope the algorithm doesn't treat this video the same way it did with this one. YouTube took 3 days to process it just for mentioning US agencies so much. And it even took 2 weeks to show translation to other languages. So if you made it this far and the algorithm showed you this video, consider yourself special. You can follow remental on whichever social network you prefer. I am on all of them except Snapchat. Also, if Calvin Klein wants me as their next model or Ferrari wants me to do a voiceover for their next commercial, you can find me as rash.fx. That's it, I'm Rash, and I'll see you in the next remental video.